Death,
Death by
noise. Today.
Ah!
Time to play the game. Time to play the game!
What up, everybody? Scuffy here, and we are about to do ourselves another deck list video for none other than Marius Vairosean. Vairosean? I don't know how you pronounce his last name. I'm going to say Vairosean. I think that's what I've always called him. Marius, the Noise Marine, the 5th warlord added to the Emperor's Children. Had a lot of fun playing him. I've actually kind of done a couple different decks with him. Early drafts were just a lot of fun, meme stuff. Not necessarily the mission, but more trying out the new cards that were added in the Galaxy in Flames. And then over time, I kind of wanted to see what I could do to build a deck to kind of complement around this ability. Because what we've got here with Marius, we've got a warlord that pays 2 energy, deals 1 damage to a random enemy, and stuns it. Now it's stun, but it's random. It's a little bit of damage, it's a little bit of stun. But what you have in addition to the warlord is you've got cards that exist in the faction, like Diversionary Tactics. You've got Noise Marine, you've got Idachin Squad. You've got other cards there that stun already. And that's something that doesn't exist really with other factions that have stun warlords. And when I say stun warlords, there's only 2 other warlords that stun. There's Caleb Decima, which is just a direct stun the enemy warlord. You could argue maybe, there's this Delta Omega 3 that could stun things. And then you've got Mortarion, who can stun any unit with 2 energy, or remove stun and poison for 2 energy. But the only other card that really stuns anything in the deck is either the Reaping, which is kind of ridiculous, or Mortarion's Resolve. There's not a whole lot of other things that stun, but the Emperor's Children not only have things that stun, but they're actually viable. They're actually useful. So I wanted to build a deck kind of around that concept and see how it worked, using the warlord ability to complement it when you need to, but really to kind of play with the Emperor's Children's card pool, which, let's be real, that's just a fantastic card pool. It's a very accessible, very easy card pool that you can play with and play on curve and just get rewarded for playing smart. So let's take a look at a game, and then we'll go into and break down the deck list and kind of talk about some of the changes and choices I evolved over the time. Okay, so this is one of those games where you've got a warlord who, like Malkador, I can stun his ability, I can negate his entire purpose. The entire purpose of the warlord is to look at my hand. There are warlords like Cambodias. His entire purpose is to build turrets to make you, if you get to go first before them, and you can shut them down by stunning, that's fantastic. But also what I gain with this matchup occasionally is the ability to stun a random enemy, which if he has got stealth troops, then I can stun those as well. Potentially, there's a chance for that. It's nothing to bank on, but if I stun his Aristed Kell, I stun his Covert Operative, that really prevents him from following up with a Chosen of Sanguinius. So that's kind of why I like that matchup. It's a nice little thing. It's not guaranteed to happen, but when it does, like this right here, it really shuts things down. And then I've got Peak Condition just to kind of get some extra juice, because you know what? I mean, he could play this guy. I forget his name off the top of my Bror. He could play Bror and clear him, but I've done damage, and I still am sitting pretty, baby, with the Emperor's Children's card pool. He knows that I've got Odysseus most likely with his peeking on my hand. He's able to see some of the cards I've got. What he doesn't know is the cards I draw, and that's just playing smart against Malkador. If you can opt to play the cards that you've drawn as opposed to cards that you have in your hand. You don't even have to worry about his ability going off or triggering, and that's just plain smart. Now, when I see that Astral Incursion, I know kind of what he's aiming for. He's aiming for the Arvida combo. He's going to go Arvida, throw down a bunch of tactics. So if I'm able to negate his ability to follow up or make additional tactics, then I'm going to go for that. I was hoping to get Ward or Survivor. I was lucky enough to get the Survivor, or the Ward, I should say, which means that that troop is basically protected. If I didn't, and he got like front line or flank, I'd be a little sad. He would be a little bit more disposable at that point. But I'm sitting pretty. I've got Cacophony, I've got the Chaplain, we've got another Enhanced Warrior, which I can fire off with my my ability, hit that perfection curve if I want to go that route. But really, I want to clear this 4-2. I was hoping to stun the 4-2 and then drop the 6, but that's not the way it's going to be, so we're going to play it dirty. And he hasn't generated all but maybe one seal, and aside from this card here generating. So I'm looking okay. I'm looking okay. And that's even better for me. All I need to do now is just give him into 7. Got some good protection here. Things are working for me. And it's really, as you can see here, the Emperor's Children card pool with select stunning in the right position to do a lot of the work. Give or take what you want. Do you want Enhanced Warrior? Do you want the Cacophony? Do you have Cacophony? Maybe you've got the Chaplain. Maybe you just want to go with Rillinor. I really found a right curve in a lot of games that I've been playing. A lot of more success I've had playing it the way that I've been doing. And this is going to be wrapped up lethal here with the 7 until he heals for 7. So now I've got to stretch it out one more turn. That's fine. We can do that. We can do that. He knows what's in my hand. He sees it. It's the end. This is the end. My only friend. The end. So here's where we're looking at for the deck list. Obviously, it's very Emperor's Children. You take a look here. Part of it initially started out to be thematically Emperor's Children, but as I played, I realized that I didn't really need to deviate too far out. And some of this is my own personal choice, but really, Malkiel and Jubak, that's it. Those are the only two non-Emperor's Children cards that are in this deck. It doesn't have to be that way, but as I said, the heart of the idea for the deck was to build stuff that could stun in addition to Marius, and that was useful. So I've got Marius's ability, which can stun. I've got 2 diversionary tactics, which can stun. I've got 2 Eidichin squads, which can stun. And then I've got the Eidolon, which can stun and then keep stunning potentially. And then, of course, through the course of that, we're playing with perfection. We're using energy to maybe play some things ahead of curve, maybe drop the Chaplain out early, or Odovacar, the Cacophony, which is just very thematic, but also just kind of, a great like clutch card, like, hey, you know what, I stunned everything, or I stunned 1 unit, but you've got 3 other units, and the only thing I've got on the board is this Cacophony. Do you really want to take the chance or not? And then you've got your standard, you've got Longinus, you've got Rillinor, Perfection's Flight in there. There are some choices that I made here. You'll see that I've got a decent amount of 6-cost cards here. I really enjoyed the Enhanced Warrior, both for thematics, for the additional warding, and really because my Warlord is not being super aggressive. I want to have some good late game options that can force my opponent to throw tactics or burn on, so when I drop something like Eidolon or Cacophony, ideally, they've wasted a lot of resources. Or vice versa, I drop Cacophony, they waste resources, and then I throw down an Enhanced Warrior that actually sticks and gets stronger. It's the same reason why I have Peak Condition. Peak Condition, number 1, is a really great card right now just because of the Titan game out there. So when you throw this down here, this could be up to a +5/+5 with a Mark of Chaos on a single Wraithrin platoon. Or maybe just a Jubak because you get him out early. Like, this card is great if you play it on curve. Turn 2, even turn 3. Like, just powerful if you get it right. It's awesome. And it's worth including over Unbreakable Focus. I did include an Unbreakable Focus in here because I was fine, like, buffing one's nice, but there was a couple games where I would have 2 or 3 troops on the board, and maybe across the board a +2/+2 is better. So I've got one in there. I also kept the Hall of Rights in there. This is a card that my opponent doesn't want to let stick, so they want to answer them while they're dealing with trying to attack this. It's hard enough, but if one of their units or their warlord is stunned, then they can only rely on flanking or tactics from hand, and that's really nice. Now, granted, you might think that's a 5 energy play, but if I've got the right cards in hand, Tactical Brilliance and Hall of Rights of 3 energy, I could play Hall of Rights, use my ability, stun their warlord, and they're really hurting for a bit because now I'm going to start playing troops on the next turn. You got to know who you're playing. You don't want to play a warlord that's most likely going to be able to recover or get past that. But if you're in a position and you've got a couple other troops that you can play the following turn, go for it. Like an Eidolon Squad that can then stun a second time, and now Eidolon Squad gets a Mark of Chaos, and it can really go in your favor. And you follow it up with a Chaplain. By the time they get rid of the Hall of Rights, you've already got other stuff with Marks of Chaos down. That's kind of the snowball. That's the process. Now, when I was building the deck, I'll just kind of show you a couple cards that I looked at initially and I opted out for because they didn't do enough for me. Tiburon Blikes, believe it or not, just didn't do enough for me. As a 3/3, especially now with Ordnance and everything, just not sticking around enough. I'm not aggressive enough to want unrestrained cruelty, so I didn't worry about that. I really wanted to do something with the Astartes and try out this Adalor veteran squad and use this Battle Honor because I had so many Astartes in my deck, but it's just a 4/4 that doesn't have anything else really to protect it or rally it, and I found that in the end, Eidolon Squad, Mycilus, and even Odovacar with the extra health really is the better 4-drops. These are just going to be your 4-drop go-tos. I only want 1 Odysseus. 2's nice, but you got to have a flanker, and this is a good enough flanker to do the work that you need to do. You could take out the Chaplain and put in a Odysseus. If you don't have the Chaplain, that's fine. 2 5-drops is good just because of the curve for perfection. I don't have the Noise Marine. Noise Marine was in my first draft, my more fun Mimi build, but it's just too easy to get rid of that 4 health. There's no protection there. It really is kind of, if it's already attacking, then it's doing its job. I like the idea of having 2 of these on side with Marius. It just kind of is a really cool image. And then you throw it on a Cacophony. Like these guys just sonic blasting everything. But in terms of playing effectively, it just was not as effective as throwing down either the Odysseus or the Chaplain Carmosian, which actually impacts the board when they play or when they leave, either which way. I left out Aghanim. I actually left this card out because I wanted to go with Enhanced Warrior. And I think with the aim of the deck, as well as what Enhanced Warrior can offer, and if Enhanced Warrior gets Survivor or Ward, and then you throw down a peak condition on it, oh, it's great. Rillinor doesn't have to be in the deck, but because there's enough perfection in there, I've got him in there, and really, then he becomes kind of your other Melgator target. Is your opponent going to bounce Rillinor, or are they going to bounce Cacophony? So yeah, there's a lot of choices, but I kind of weeded through them all and found that by the time I was said and done, I didn't even need to go down here. Now, where's the anti-stealth? Where's the board-wide damage? It's in the troops. I don't really want to clear a whole board a whole lot before I drop peak condition. So that kind of throws things off there. As I kind of want to have that and use my troops and my other abilities to do that. But I also, and this is just a playstyle for me, if I go without stealth, I go all the way hard. I've got some other things that can kind of work. I can stun randomly, which is a little bit banking on some luck there. But then I also have got Cacophony for those games where they've got stuff in stun or in stealth. Now, are they going to even chance breaking out into attacking me, or have I bought myself the time that I need? So that's really kind of the thought process. You could certainly get rid of one of those cards. Get rid of an Unbreakable Focus. Maybe get rid of your Rillinor for some anti-stealth if you want to go that route. But personally, I don't think I needed it, and I've had some pretty fun with it. So let's take a look at a couple more games, and we'll talk about some hard matchups. So one matchup that can be a little tricky, obviously, is the Space Wolves with Ward. And I'll be honest, this was a little bit of a gamble for opening hand. Like, 1, tactical brilliance is great. 2 is chancy, especially if I don't have any troops in my hand to go with it. So I was really banking on, what do I play? What do I get out there? Can I get something that'll stick? You know, I'm glad that I stunned it. That's what I was hoping to do, even though he buffed the health of this troop. I didn't want it attacking and him putting down another one that I can't reach at that point. So now what I'm doing here is using the this Hall of Rights as well as Malkiel to basically do double targets. He's only got 3 cards in hand. He's gonna have a 4th one. There's no way that he can get rid of both of these. He has to choose which one he's getting rid of if he's got a flanker. And then, lo and behold, it turns out he can actually get rid of both. But then he's given up his warlord action and he's not able to deploy troop. I did not expect the Vorax. Tried. I didn't expect it. But in the end, that's okay because I actually have got a follow-up with Enhanced Warrior and Tactical Brilliance. And I can still be in the running. I can still then follow it up with Peak Condition. I've got Odysseus. Like, it's already still even Steven. But I did not expect the Vorax. I did not. But yeah, like, just getting this out on 4 energy, that's powerful. Cleave 2, meh. But you got a 6/6 on 4 energy. That's going to get to be a 7/7 or something else. Like, it's just going to gain value. And the fact that then I can use my ability, stun his warlord. Maybe I was going to stun this, which would have been a waste. But then I can throw down the Peak Condition, give him a +2/+2, plus a Mark of Chaos. Then, when he's done, he's going to gain another +1/+1. Like, this is going to do a lot of work. It's going to draw a lot of fire. It's going to draw a lot of focus. It's going to burn a lot of cards just to get rid of this beast. That right there. 2 tactics, 8 damage, no troops. Like, that's all he had. I know one of those cards in there is his Heimetal Squad. And I'm okay if he wants to try flanking, because that's what Space Wolves are going to do. So at this point now, we can get cooking. He's burned his burn. He sent both of those Emperor's Executioners off. So yeah, so now we can really go to town. And we've got enough, honestly, we've got enough cards in here to really, like, get crazy if we want to double up, but I don't want to. Because this is one of the few cards that he's got that actually has Ward. And I don't want to throw away my buffs. I'm going to keep that Peak Condition because I want to play like another card or 2 before I get rid of this. Because I do have cards in my deck that can target. But if a Space Wolf has got a bunch of Ward on the board, then I can't target anything. Luckily for me, he makes my job a little bit easier here with the flanking. And I think he realized, like, he doesn't want to play that game. Like, Cacophony versus flanking is a bad pinch, especially once you get them past the Ambassador Melgator range. It basically requires hard removal. And as I said, like, that game there was a prime example of him throwing away all of his tactics, all of his burn, just to get rid of one big troop. And then you drop another sizable threat. So, fast opponents, or opponents that can play cards from hand, I think that's probably, or tactic damage decks. Those are probably your biggest threats here. Not necessarily solo warlords, because a solo warlord means that that's just an easy target for Marius. You know, Jagatai Khan, Angron, Kurz when he's in stealth, like, guess who's going to get stunned every turn? That's a given. But warlords that have got a lot of burn in their hand, or that have got fast troops, I can't stun those, right? There's no answer for me for that. So what I have to do in that regard is play a little bit more aggressively early on, and then get to a point where then I can have the Cacophony. Cacophony is going to do a lot of work for this deck. But I'd argue that the reason why Cacophony does a lot of work for this deck is because it also, the deck is kind of geared to get to that end game 7 energy plus situation where Cacophony is one of many things that is frustrating your opponent. Whereas if you just throw Cacophony and you're standing Emperor's Children, you're like, you know, whatever, it's a card, your opponent is going to have some answers for it. Your opponent isn't going to have answers for Cacophony and Enhanced and Eidolon and Rillinor. They can get good draws, that's entirely possible, but you really frustrate them by stalling what they can do on the board, which means that those answers for these cards have to come from their hand. That's the strategy. That's where kind of where you shift it around. You have to make their plays come from a different source. Whereas if they're like, well, I can rely on what's on the table, they can't. More importantly, when you've got something like Peak Conditions or Cacophony, their cards that they have on the table then actually become a liability for them. It actually becomes a problem for them. That's a card that they don't want to use, or now you've suddenly turned their playstyle to your advantage. And that's one reason of many why I like this playstyle. I kind of really have found that this deck works. Now, hard matchups are definitely like aggro burn, right? Like Sons of Horus, like you can stun my warlord, but if you're throwing down 4 damage, and you've got the second wave, and then you're hitting me for 6, that's a lot of threats. That's a lot of threats that I might not be able to respond to in time, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, that's the way it is. Like every deck has got an answer one way or the other. Like you can't have a perfect matchup all the time. I wish you could. But all I have to do here, like at this point, is I could stun, throw down Enhanced Warrior, or maybe I throw out Eidolon. The fact that he's throwing down Outriders here, I know what he's going to do. He's going to bounce. He's really hoping to, like, Malkiel, he's got that stealth. He's taken 4 cards if you count his warlord, to try to get him off the board. I talk about like a lot of resources that he's exhausted to get rid of 1 card. And now that he's got only 1 card, which returns all of his stuff to his hand, and the Kandali Scout, I'm in a position to play it again. I feel like this is like a repeat record, but that's what this deck does. And it does it pretty well. You just have to be willing to play the game to get to that point. Don't be aggressive with your warlord unless you have to. Make them come to you. Make them burn the cards on these things. Don't sit back and use your ability too often where you can't play these cards. You know, you gotta play it a little bit smart. But yeah, and then just sit back. Like at this point, the more cards he puts on the table, as long as I've only got this, the better I'm off. Like he can put down 4 or 5 cards on the table, or just attack it. Like if I put down 2 or 3, then that increases the odds that one of my stuff is going to get wasted. Why should I do that? I'm in a decent enough position. We're still tied, but I've got a very powerful tool on my side. Then now he's throwing away resources just to deal with, and he doesn't even know what I've got in my hand. I like the deck. I like the deck a lot. I found that worked a lot better than trying to do a mission build or a super noise marini build. I don't think every card in here is 100% necessary. Truthfully, I don't. But part of that is because the Emperor's Children card pool is very strong. Like, very strong. Like, at this point, he could hit the 2 energy and kill Cacophony if he's lucky, but he has no cards in his hand, so something's going to kill him. And he doesn't get that. He gets my warlord instead, and now he's just got this +2, which is, again, just another liability. He can't even attack my warlord. He's done the work for me. Thank you, Cacophony. Is Cacophony the VIP of this? Yes. If Cacophony was changed tomorrow, would this deck work? It would need to be changed. And when I say changed, like, I would probably just put in Agnamen instead of Cacophony. Like, that, there's not a huge change that needs to happen. You know, you still have a viable 6-cost threat that draws some fire, but it wouldn't be as draw fiery. Maybe I would drop another 6-cost card and try to throw in like another either Hall of Rights or Tiberlin Bikes back then at that point. But really, I've had a lot of fun playing it. It's worked pretty well. Like I said, a lot of my earlier games, drafting up a different deck here, but since changing it, very enjoyable, very fun. And that's kind of the whole point, is having fun. But if you're looking to get some options out there, you could consider Edronius as a one of. just for some jam, for some troop damage hate. If you don't want to deal with stunning a troop, you could certainly jam it. In place of Unbreakable Focus, you certainly could put Ruined Palace, right? Because this is going to be kind of the same thing. Everything's going to get a Mark of Chaos +1/+1 versus just a board-wide +2/+2. The difference is this is just Astartes, so that will not work on your bikes or your Rilliner. But because everything else you have here is Astartes minus Jubok and Malkio, that's still a pretty effective card. And getting Terror or Poison on troops that already have got high stat buffs or have got, you can throw down another peak condition on them, is very nice. You could also, like I said, mention some options for Informant Network to include that in there. And if you yourself are worried about stun, then find a way to put in Pi Alpha. But I don't think you need to, because if your opponent is stunning you, then they're playing the long game, and really, this is a deck that pays off in the long game. It really does. So I hope this has been interesting for you, giving you some ideas, gotten you excited. If you like it, let me know in the comments. If you played Marius and found some other cards that work well with her, let me know. And be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Spread the word. Tell people about it. If people are curious about the Emperor's Children, or they want to try out Marius Vairosean, however you want to pronounce his last name, point him this way, because I don't know if anybody else has given him a play, but he's pretty fun. And yeah, until then, keep playing Legions.